Welcome back to Supreme Fuzzler. We are doing the Incredible Brisby, Mr. Brisby Land. I think that's the episode name. The Incredible Mr. Brisby. Sorry, not Brisby Land. It is episode 4 of season 1 of Venture Brothers. This is not one of my favorite episodes, but it's still a pretty dang decent episode. When I was going over it today, I was realizing, oh, that's right, no, this has a lot of good hints of what's to come, a lot of a character introduction that's really not only important but also really interesting and fun, and more development on several other characters. Honestly, all the characters are shooken up a little more and improved here. So let's get right into it. Honestly, is what I was gonna do. What we get started with is you get a shot of fucking zebras and other Africa-like animals just fucking drinking water, basically. It's a safari, it obviously, it looks like that. Yeah, so we have zebras and ostriches, I think, gorillas and giraffes. So you're like, okay, they're like in a safari place, and then they land, an airplane lands, scattering the fucking animal, the wildlife, which, good job, Rusty. But, they don't care that much. And we get to the boys, Hank and Dean, and they're like, wow, you didn't say we were going to Africa, like, check out that, and then Rusty's like, good, oh god, they're awake, and Hank points out to an elephant, and fucking Dean names its fucking science name, something Africanus, I can't remember, sadly. And then he's like, you can tell which one's a male by their tusks. And Hank like, I have no trouble telling which one's male. Check out the third leg on that one. Basically, he's like, you got a big one. Oh, man. Like, that's called a trunk, Hank. That's not what I'm talking about, Dean. Guys. They're like slight showing of their naivety and how much they're kind of out of touch. And also the difference between their out of touchnesses. Where Dean's essentially still somewhat even sexually out of touch, where Hank, at the very least, understands what a third leg means, basically, in reality. He's in the context of the real world. And so then Rusty is like, Brock, be ready with your tranquilizer. If they realize where we really are, they'll go start jumping off the walls. Rusty, like, we're gonna knock them the fuck out. I don't care. We don't care at all. We're gonna just knock them out, and then we'll get to the next part. And then they get a transmission from someone who's like, oh, you're right on time. Good job. And like, oh, yeah, thank you. Like, well, let me be the first to welcome you to Brisby Land. And the boys freak out, and it pans out. And the safari we saw was actually like the safari park area of the park. Which I'm like, Rusty, you just landed in the safari park area? You didn't give a shit? Whatever. And it shows there's a roller coaster, and this is obviously a theme park. I really do actually like this episode. It's a neat little kind of parody of the Disney World and land set up at whatever that's out there, and a neat little showing of some interesting subjects throughout this episode. And it's the beginning is a decent little like funny beginning to how you like have a kids. And like they're sleeping, and you brought them to Disney World, but you didn't tell them you're bringing them to Disney World. You told them you're going like to the fucking dentist or some shit, or just the coast. And then they're like, okay, they gotta not notice. They'll freak out if they notice. And then they notice, and you're like, oh god. All right. And then we're gonna be doing the intro, and from the intro, if I recall, we get right into the Brisby. That's right. Fucking, it's the boys and Venture. Sorry, I gotta refresh my memory. Boys being like, oh my god, Brisby Land, and Rusty being, no, you stay in the freaking plane. I don't give a damn. I'm here to just see this guy, and then we're gonna get the hell out of here, because I hate places like this, basically. And of course the boys are like, what the hell, man? And what are you talking about? And then Rusty's like, no, and fucking Hank, like, what are you, on the rag? And Rusty, like, this is impossible for me to be. I can't believe I'm arguing you about this. It's so funny, because as a parent myself, I'm like, this is an argument, guy, that you just gotta not have. Like, when someone has such a nonsensical fucking comment to you, especially as an insult, you just don't even deal with it. So he sends them to into the plane to basically just fucking sit there and watch this theme park from within the plane. Pretty dick move, but at the same time, I get it. Kinda, not really. Not really. You have to find your kids at the end of all this, but, you know, fucking, they're Hank and Dean. I don't know. It's a little weird. And so, and fucking Rusty is just like, this is such a squeaky clean place. This family festive place. It gives me the fucking goosebumps, basically. Like, he just, literally, his brain and mind just rejects this kind of a place completely. And then fucking Dean's like, because Dean's picking up his hat, and Dean's like, black man, and big dude, fucking turban, fucking, I think tattoos on his face, I'm not exactly sure, and it just doesn't say anything, and is all silent and brooding type, and is just never not saying a word, as Rusty's like, "Oh, I'm Rusty Venture. I'm Dr. Venture. I'm here to see Mr. Brisby. Or you must be Mandolin. They said they were gonna meet you. You gonna say anything? This is my man Brock. He's cool. No, nothing." And then like Mandolin, the big guy, like goes to like swings his arm to point them towards a golf cart, basically to go. But it like swings it in a way where Brock almost grabs his knife and it's like, oh, and they're like close to attacking basically, but they're like, oh, no, everything's okay. Rusty's all scared and shit, and it's like, oh, okay, that way. And Rusty, mute, I guess. So funny, it's so good. And then Rusty and Brock get taken to the Disneyland, but a really creepy version of the Disneyland, like Disney Castle place. And it's like got a really creepy-esque hallway, and they open the door to reveal a wheelchair-bound Mr. Brisby sitting by the fireside, but with his back to the wall, to the door. And then they like guide Rusty inside, and they're like, Brock has to wait outside, I'm afraid. And Brock has to just sit down and chill. And watching Mandolin being like, the fuck to this guy? I mean, come on. I don't know, man. The big black mute guy is just so an interesting character here. And Brock's just great. So then you have the introduction of Mr. Brisby, actually. Fucking, where he turns around to face Rusty, and he has that type of face where, like, he's had types of surgery or some shit where he can't close his lips of his mouth, so like he's like smiling like, you can do like this all the time. It's really weird. I mean, not really weird, because, you know, I don't want to insult the guy because he is obviously crippled in some way, but damn, is it creepy as fuck. Fucking Rusty straight screams when he sees him, like, oh dear God, and it's like, it's okay. And yeah, Brock gets up because fucking Rusty screams, but they're like, we're chill. And then they have the conversation about his deformity, if I recall. Yeah, so he was trapped underneath Metal Lincoln for 2 hours and had a stroke due to all that shit. Fucking goddamn, this fucking park. It's so horribly brutal. So, Mr. Brisby fucking offers Rusty, and they drink Panda's milk. And he's like, it's one of the rarest beverages on Earth. And it's a natural elixir for long life. Like, the fucking what, bro? On that note, I forgot to mention, they do show that he has a pet panda in the back and shit, eating fucking bamboo and chilling, assumably to give him Panda's milk when he needs it. Yeah, man, his longtime Companda. God, it's so good. Fucking, he won it in a fucking bet, and it's so hilarious. And he won it, that's right, he won it from David Bowie, in a trivia contest in 1980-81, which is kind of important in for later stuff. It's kind of interesting. Then it cuts to the boys, who are just talking, and Hank's all bored, watching cool stuff happen, while Dean is looking at animals, African animals, and trying to find them. There's one he can't name with his cards that he has, and fucking... you see two guys come out of a hippo's mouth. It's kind of crazy. So, and then it cuts back to Brock and them. which Brock just trying to make conversations like, how long you work for this guy, the Mandolin, the mute, who has made it, at least up to this point, kind of clear he is mute, or at very least refusing to talk. So it's kind of funny, like, so, yeah, how long you work for this guy? You know? Huh? Talking? No? Okay. After that, it goes back to Brisby and Rusty talking, and it's actually really interesting here, where Brisby is like, alright, now that we've gotten the pleasantries out of the way, I'm going to talk to you about what I actually brought you here for, which I wanted to look into cloning research that you have. And Rusty's like, I wouldn't know anything about that since Congress banned all cloning research in North America. And fucking Brisby, Congress, a bunch of C-list actors and would-be astronauts. So brutal. Not visionaries like you and me, not like your father. And then he goes into the whole, your father and I were great friends. He helped me design many of the rides, you know. And I don't know, you might have been too young to remember. And it flashes back to Rusty with Jonas, and Jonas is and Rusty being like, do I have to, Dad? And Jonas like, you wanted to help Daddy, son, didn't you? And it's a fucking like machine that goes like up and down, like boing, 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 and fucks him up. Like, it's obviously not something a child should be in, and it's so horrible that Jonas is fucking testing on his own son like that. And so fucking Brisby's like, I want your father's research notes. And so he's like, I'll pay handsomely for those alone. And it's interesting because Rusty's like, so you're not here for me, you're here for him. I don't know if I kept any of Dad's old notes. And fucking Brisby's like, of course you did. You've been riding his coattails since you were all your adult life. And like, how dare you, dude? What the hell? Like, straight up, like, you can't just tell me that right into my face. I can't shit like that. Like, oh, you don't know me. Like, oh, I know you, Dr. Venture. You don't actually have a doctorate, for instance. You never finished the school. And it's like, motherfucking wow, this guy. And goes off about how, like, the venture industries is his profits are in the tank. How basically ever since his father died, everything's gone to shit. And Rusty, although rightfully saying, I don't have to take this. I'm not going to work for you. He also is like, I don't have to take this from a gimp. And it's like, whoa, Rusty, damn. You don't have to, wow, dude. Calm down there. So then they have the scene where Brock is like, oh shit, I'm out of smokes. Mandolin offers him a smoke. And lights it for him even. And Brock's like, you're alright. And then it's Brisby being like, that's your final answer? Like, of course is my final answer. If I recall, yeah, that's what's next, right? Yeah, so then it has, like, Brisby being like, that's your final answer? He's like, definitely, call me a fucking go-kart. And he's like, now, yes, now, and the panda, he's like, no, and the panda comes out of nowhere and grabs Dr. Venture. And then, then they have the Brock scene, which he's like, you're alright, but then, and you hear Rusty screaming. Brock gets up to go to help him, but then Brisby's like, you should really be careful taking cigarettes. And he's like, chlorohydrate, and fucking rocks and knock the fuck out. So brutal, honestly. It's a very interesting, brutal set of scenes, because it actually has Brock be defeated, pretty much. Then it switches to the fucking, the boys. Sorry. Damn. Okay, before that, Brisby catches on fire and he fucking freaks out and is like, oh god, I'm gonna die, and luckily gets helped by the panda. But then they go back to the boys. The boys are like, fucking Hank's gonna loogie and trying to put a loogie in Dean's mouth, and it's so fucking funny and weird. And then as that's happening, though, those two guys who came out of the hippo come out of nowhere and essentially, from what it seems like, capture the boys and just straight up, like, just use an orange, it looks like, to fucking just subdue them. So weird. So after that, we get Rusty and being like uncovered, and Mr. Brisby, Dr. Brisby, is like, sorry about the theatrics. It's just with cartoons, I was taught never to be too careful. And it's like, okay, well, what's going on? You broke my glasses. Like, we'll get you new glasses. We'll get you everything you need here. Like, okay, where is here? Welcome to the Brisby Dome. And fucking Rusty, it's great because he's right. It's like, you guys, this is the freaking big ass beehive right next to your castle, isn't it? You guys knocked me out just to drag me 50 yards, literally just right across the fucking way, and you didn't not even take him to another state or anything, and just crazy like that. Just knocked him out to take him here. It's just really weird. Really seems unsensible. And then we get the introduction of a pretty fun character, but although a little odd, but a very interesting one. So you see Brock being dragged out all mud. He's covered in mud, and a woman's voice, a sexy, sensual woman's voice, is talking to me like, Samson, you know you can't die on me, Samson. So fucking, it's goddamn. Because that's my job. And then stomps his face in. And he mentions, right before though, is like, Molotov cocktease. It's just like, her name. Wow. But introduction of this character. So then after they introduce her, we cut over to the boys and what they're dealing with. You got kind of just him in a liberation army kind of style, like straight up out of like Syria or even South American paramilitary style of a bunch of guys with oranges. This one dude who's got a orange as his like head, like he was a supervillain or something, and then the other guys who got orange ear muffs. And they're like, you are in the Orange County, like they have the boys, sorry, before I go, they've kidnapped Hank and Dean. Like, you're in the Orange County Orange County Community College's gymnasium being held by the Orange County Liberation Front. Free OC! Free OC! So fucking interesting and weird, but like, it is. And they're like, you want more juice? You can get them more juice. You can get more juice. It's so fucking interesting. And like, so the fucking Dean's like, well, our dad has a policy never to negotiate for our lives. It's pretty kind of sad, but so you're out of luck. Like, we're not, or negotiate with terrorists. Like, we're not terrorists. We're normal people with normal lives and normal jobs and everything. And then one dude gets like a pager because it's 2005, and he's like, oh, that's me. My wife's going into labor. They're like, oh, it's amazing. It's just so, and then they're like, who do you know who your father's working for? Basically Brisby. They're like, duh, he's the maker of the cartoon. And he's like, you don't know what the dark and death and that creature has created. It's all evil. The bee. I mean, I'm over the top it, but it's so funny. So then they get Brisby again trying to convince Rusty to join him, basically, and give him, or at least give him information on cloning. And Rusty is, rightfully so, is basically like, get it through your head, like, I don't care. Brisby also talks about how his hive is going to, this beehive that he's creating is going to be part of a whole, like, super specialized indoor life thing that, like, you can create. So that will be Brisby life for everyone and everything. And then he gives the speech about how, like, my body is dying. The old man's speech on the sad one where you're like, my brain is as strong as it ever, even though my body cannot keep up. I'm as imaginative as I was the first time I drew the first busy bee. Rusty comes back hard, and he's like, I get it. You're a stupid-ass crazy pants person. And it's just, and then they grab him and drug him. And it's like, oh no, oh god, like, what'd you think was gonna happen, Rusty? You think they were gonna let you, like, not do this? Like, they were giving you a second chance to do this on your own free will. So they're gonna try and take the information from him, I think. And then, of course, with this whole shit, Brisby falls down a bunch of stairs, which is kind of sad in its own way, because he's in a wheelchair, if you guys remember. And the bee workers are like, oh my god, sir, are you okay? And he's like, this is what you call wheelchair accessible? I mean, truly, if your boss is in a wheelchair, you think they really work on the wheelchair accessibility and how much that is actually going to be a point in this thing. But, And then we get the introduction of Molotov cocktease for real. And then they get her and Brock in this badass little fight real quick. And they're like, how long's it been? It's like 3 years, 34 days or some shit like that. Brock knew the exact amount of time. And then Molotov's like, oh yes, Prague. Like, oh, okay. And then they're like, how'd you survive the fall from the plane? Landed into a dump truck full of circus peanuts. And then they after they kick each other's ass for a while, they get into a whole spiel with each other, like a sad argument that gives us a lot of insight into not only their two characters but Brock specifically. Of you killed my father after you killed my partner. You took my eye. Okay, so Molotov is you killed my father. Brock is you killed my partner. Molotov's you took my eye. Brock after you took my heart. And then they start making out. And then I get really sexy into it. And then he goes for goes to touch the fucking down south. And it's to go to third base. And she's like, "Niet, you know it. I can only go to second base." Still, yes. And I thought the Cold War was over. It's always cold in Siberia. So funny and brutal. Just such a brutalities. Great little part. And honestly, one of the best ones. And then of course Brock's like, oh my god, I can't handle this. So he grabs 2 smokes, starts smoking 2 cigarettes. She's like, can I have one? And he hands her a smoke, and she's like, I don't want to say she smokes it sexily, but she takes a smoke using her sexy lips, kind of licks them after taking this puff, and then crosses her legs, those tight legs, and and then fucking Brock, of course, is like, oh my god, and he's like, I gotta go take care of something, and he's got a big ass boner, and so you gotta go deal with that. So, and then we get back to the Orange Revolutionaries, and they're essentially explaining why Brisby is bad, how he's pushed businesses out and residents out, and specifically explaining that this new Brisby dome that he's building used to have a huge and a really nice residential area there, and that we had an Applebee's there. There used to be a skate park and all this kind of funny stuff. Debbie and I met at that Applebee's. We met there. And stuff like that, and basically trying to explain to the boys why the Bee and Brisby is actually evil and all that. They're also we're loosely affiliated with the Sunshine Hero Front down in Florida. Loosely. Those guys are weird down there. These fucking Californians are just all freaked out. I don't know if freaked out, but it's just so funny to hear a whole yeah, we're kind of affiliated with these other people getting effed by Brisby, but not 100%. I just realized Brisby, Disney, God, I don't know why I never connected those two. Thank you. Wow. So, and then the orange guys, they're like, okay, we got these mind control bee hats that we have stolen from Brisby and successfully been able to reprogram. But more specifically, they're mind control hats. They built these themselves, like Brisby did. And so, is it really, it's obvious that they're evil. Come on, do you still think they're not, that they're good? And he's like, and then of course, Hank and Dean are like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just put on these hats then. It's just fucking wow. So, and then we get back to Brisby, who is interrogating Rusty. And they're like, okay, he's going to tell us everything he knows about cloning, because we put truth serum or whatever the fuck in him. And then Mandolin, they're like, Mandolin, wake him up. So the big black guy slaps him, and you gotta go wake his ass up. And fucking Brisby's like, state your name. And Rusty is like, from the top. Lisa, Carol, and Freema. And fucking, because they got a lie detector and shit on him. And the fucking guys are like, he's telling the truth, sir. It's so fucking great. Psychology is one of the more intriguing events that this show really portrays really well. He had a really hard but intense and interesting life. And up to this point has not had nothing but kind of hardships, really. But now at this point in his life, he's kind of just come to a terms or whatever you want to say, popping pills, doing what he's doing. It's so odd to think about where Rusty is as a person later in the series, especially in comparison to this, when he's doing this whole psychology test thing. It's weird. And then, so, we got Brock doing his masturbation thing, but Molotov explaining, it wasn't the boys it wasn't the Brisby who took the boys, it actually was these orange freedom fighter guys, and I can take you to them. And so they're gonna go and they go there, and then we have the orange revolutionaries talking about their stuff again. You show Hank and Dean are now mind controlled, and they show a bee, and you're like, "This is the enemy." And Dean and Hank just fucking tackle it, and go raging mad on it and destroy it. And then they're like, "Okay, we're gonna go attack." And as they're leaving, the main dudes with the orange head, his wife stops him and is like, "Oh, our horoscope shows that it's a great day to launch a new project for us. Like, that's great, honey. We should probably get." And the Cosmos says that orange is the new black this year. So fucking funny. Interesting that they say that terminology, orange is the new black, considering that TV show that's 10 years after this came out. But interesting. After that though, it flows into it flows into. These two orange guards are talking about their backpacks, and one dude's like, "I got the buckle one," and like, "Oh my god, you got oh my god, you got the buckle one," and like, "Oh yeah, you just got the Velcro. I got mine back in '97. Like, it was that way. It definitely was a lot easier back then." And fucking Brock comes out of the bushes and just throws a metal pole on dude's throat and flips himself over the fence. Molotov grabbing the other dude and flipping herself over the fence. Brock tries but fails to grab the fucking the X2 or X1 that's flying, and he fucking throws a rock, hits Helper, realizes Helper's there, calls Helper, and he's like, "If I call him, then he'll bring the X1 back, because he'll have to." He calls Helper, and Helper just jumps out of the fucking plane, just straight up just hops his ass off. And it's funny, because then Molotov's like, "That's fiery, I got it." Then we have Rusty fucking just, being a lady, basically. Like, "Oh, I can't deal with strangers. I got the vapors. Which one of you gentlemen are gonna catch my fall?" So fucking funny. And then as Mr. Brisby is dealing with this, explosions happen, which flows into, the Orange County Revolutionary Army showed up. They're just attacking out of nowhere, beating up a bunch of fucking workers and kicking ass and trying to actually using these orange-like explosive devices, and really seeming like they're killing a lot of people. They got a bunch of fucking AKs and stuff, and they're fighting. But although I will say the bees seem to kill a lot too. Brock's like, "Okay, you go find to Molotov." He's like, "Okay, you go find the Dr. Venture. I'm gonna go get the boys." Like, "Niet, Brock Simpson. I have my own mission. Did you forget I'm a mercenary?" And I'm like, okay. So apparently she has some kind of fucking job to do. And fucking, they kiss, and then she slaps him just right away. And then, of course, a bee grabs him for some reason, which, of course, that guy's gonna die. Like, "Let's kill the bee!" And shit. And Rusty comes out and is like, "Oh my god, what the fuck's happening?" And he's kind of waking up from his drug of inducement. But then an explosion makes him fall, or almost fall, all the way down. But luckily, Brock saves his ass at the last second really well. It's really awesome. And as Brock's kicking ass, of course, he meets the boys. And the boy... Oh, wait, sorry. Before he meets the boys, I forgot. He meets Mandolin, the big black guy. And as they crack knuckles at each other, basically, but then Rusty is falling, and then he shoots to fucking save Rusty in a split second, and then he kind of points the gun at fucking Mandolin, and Mandolin's like, "I don't even need this job," and proving he's not a mute, but just being like, "I don't need this job, I'm gonna just leave here." And then the boys show up, and they're like, "Kill the bee, and they got guns and shit. They're like, "We'll kill the bee," because they got mind controlled by the helmets that they got on them. And Brock, like, throws away his gun and is like, "Boys, you don't want to do this. You don't want to try to attack me. You know what will happen if you attack me." And they all start sweating and shit. Then it goes to fucking Molotov and being with Brisby and being like, "You know what I'm here for, Mr. Brisby. Hand it over and you don't have to get hurt." Sorry, I was thinking. So, and then we have... the boys get themselves knocked out by Brock. Fucking, well, not knocked out. They get their heads clocked together, and then they realize that they're alive and surviving. Brock shoots Rusty one more time to save his ass completely, but this time he hits him in the wrist and makes him bleed. "Oh my god, we're in Brisby land," the boys are like, though. "You're the best dad ever. Go Team Venture," even though Rusty's bleeding over there. Well, whatever, we don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And then it's the outro, which leads into the final scene, which I think is really interesting. It's Molotov driving away with the panda and being like, talking to someone and being in like, your package has been secure with no problems. Thank you, Mr. Bowie. So fucking funny and an interesting continuity thing for like, the panda gets to go to Bowie. Also, the last little outro's little tidbit was Companda. So that was the incredible Brisby, Mr. Brisby. It's a decent episode, not one. It's definitely one of those longer ones that have a lot more. Like, as we progress through the series, we get more and more episodes that have a lot more information, and especially in these early episodes, I like to talk about, because there's a lot of hints and foreshadows, or even just like building of blocks for what's to come. The plot lines and storylines that we come to know and like. If you guys are on, sorry, just transitioning, but if you're on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe if you would like. Doing more Venture Brother podcast episode reviews as the days come through. And also there's, of course, Venture clips to satiate any Venture love or desire. And also you can always hit up some Let's Plays or a comedy sketch. The channel has some stuff to check out if you feel like it. I am going to get into the next episode, which is one of my favorites, which is Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic. Look forward to that episode, honestly. Anyone who's never seen this next episode deserves to see it. It is a fantastic episode. This was a good one, though, too. It introduced a very interesting side character who's like one of the long-running side characters, who's like, even in the way she's introduced, you can kind of figure it out. She's like an anti-villain. She's a mercenary, as she says. But that naturally also means she could be hired to be their foe. And based upon what Brock is, which is a agent of the government, essentially, he's going to be at natural odds with her. And based upon what they give to us, with the little bit of backstory they give, it's like, okay, they did a bunch of shit when they were younger. And not only have they done a bunch of shit when they were younger, where he killed your father, killed your partner, and I took your eye, and then we fell in love, but we also have the whole shit that has, where the Prague stuff, like, showing that they don't, it's not just, you know, a back and forth that we met each other once kind of shit. No, it's more of a back and forth. We've been fighting each other our entire lives here and there as skilled agents of our respective crafts. Anyways, thank you for watching, or excuse me, listening. This is Supreme Fuzzler. I hope you have a good day, and goodbye.